Thank you. It's an honor to be with all of you all today. My name is Allan Parker. I'm the president of the Justice Foundation. Can you hear me in the back? I have this feeling I'm supposed to project my voice to the back of the room, but I'm going to let the microphone do it. I was a trial lawyer for many years, and then I became a professor of law. I gave my life to the Lord, and He made me a professor of law at St. Mary's University School of Law in San Antonio, Texas. In the year 2000, He changed my life again by asking me to represent Norma McCorvey and Sandra Cano, Roe and Doe, in their legal efforts to reverse the two cases that brought abortion to America. And He told me to collect the testimonies of women hurt by abortion. Began to work with Silent No More awareness campaign, and our part of it was called Operation Outcry, where the women were telling the truth about what abortion did together. And by God's grace, He reversed Roe v. Wade. How many of you thought you'd ever see it in your lifetimes? Let's give God a clap offering for what He did. Well, He is not finished. I'm here to speak as a lawyer, and I've also written a book called Reversing Roe v. Wade, My Journey with Roe, Doe, and God, that shows a lot of the providential history, the things God did behind the scenes to really accomplish His purposes. But so at the end, I'm going to give you all a free copy of the book, but it's also a book of evidence. It has a chapter on women's testimonies. It has a chapter on Norma's story about working in the abortion clinic, how it changed her mind. Sandra Cano fled to Oklahoma to avoid a forced abortion in the middle of the Doe v. Bolton case. Things like that can help you. But today we're going to talk about finding the right to life in the existing Constitution. And let's see if that works. Yes. How many of you think there's a right to life in the existing current Constitution? Raise your hands. All right. Not everybody. You'd be surprising. And I'm not going to quote any of you or embarrass you. I didn't know what I'm about to teach you until January through March of this year when I did the research. But all right, those of you who said yes, where is the right to life in the Constitution? 14th Amendment. And someone mentioned the 5th. Okay, from now on, every single one of you will be able to go out here and discuss and testify in favor of the life clauses in the Constitution. Probably you've never heard that phrase before. Now, Students for Life, God bless him, has been a strong champion of the 14th Amendment for a long time, and many people wrote about that for years. But this is the absolute proof that there is a right to life in the existing Constitution. It's in there twice. It's undeniable. You can find it and put it up on the walls. You can make pamphlets about it and pass them out on college. No one can deny, unless they deny reality, that there's a right to life in the existing Constitution. There's two of them. These are the two life clauses. 5th Amendment, no person shall be deprived of life without due process of law. That binds the federal government. And it was passed in 1791, 15 years after 1776, when another important document talked about the right to life, the Declaration of Independence, okay? Now, the other side calls those the due process clause. You'll hear that because due process is mentioned. You can call it that, but it's just as legitimate to call them the life clauses because they talk about life. And even more important under originalism, as I'll show you in a minute. So there's the second. And so a lot of people have mentioned the 14th. We should not ignore the 5th Amendment, particularly this year or 2026, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. All right, now the 14th Amendment says, no person shall be, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, but we're just focusing on life today, without due process, or be denied the equal protection. So there's kind of two protections in the 14th Amendment. You could say it's even stronger. And they had more scientific evidence that life begins at conception. So what is the key issue today? When the founders founded the document, the Declaration, which justified our revolution, when they founded the Constitution, which established our current form of government, and they used the word life, did they think life began at birth, or did they believe life began in the womb? And the absolute answer, easy to prove historically, is they believed life began in the womb and was worthy of legal protection then. So why is that important today? Because until 2020, the Supreme Court didn't care much what the words of the Constitution said. If you think about it, in 1920, they began to abandon the common law and the belief that God was behind the laws of our country. They began to, just as Oliver Wendell Holmes said, there is no brooding omnipresence in the sky. That's a Harvard way of saying there's no God. And so they began to make up their own laws. And they, from about the 1920s to 2020, they made up whatever they wanted the words of the Constitution mean. That's how they could find a right to abortion in a clause that talks about life. They didn't care what the means. But under originalism, correctly holds that applying the original meaning of the words is the duty of judges, and it's the only method which legitimately honors the consent of the governed, making our system government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so this is the new book by Amy Coney Barrett. I suggest that you all get a copy of it. It was 2020 when she began to be, when she was the third member that Trump got on the court, that for the first time in 100 years, we had a majority of the court, which is necessary to make binding decisions, who believed that the words meant what the people meant them to be, and that was the duty of judges to follow that meaning. She says in the preamble of this book, she invites you to wrestle with originalism and to embrace the rich heritage of our Constitution. It is time to embrace the rich heritage of our Constitution. For 100 years, approximately from about 1920 to 2020, the Declaration of Independence was not considered part of the Constitution or even relevant to constitutional decision-making. The court said it's not a part of the Constitution. When I ask most people, is there a right to life? They say yes, and I say where? They'll start quoting the Declaration of Independence. That's where the common knowledge is. But let's think about this. And I urge every one of you from now all the way through next year to teach Americans this history that has been stolen from us, really, by the law. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So did the founders in the Declaration of Independence believe there was a right to life? Yes. Where did they believe it came from? It's right there in writing. They believe it came from God. This is the Judeo-Christian God. It's the Old and the New Testament. They were believers to the great extent, and most of America was. The most widely read and sold book in America was the Bible back then, just as it still is. Now, that to secure these rights, what right? The right to life, governments are instituted among men. The purpose of government is to protect life. That is the duty of government. And deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, this is originalism, is a just powers doctrine. Judges who follow the written meaning of the Constitution, which says there's a right to life, are following the people's instructions. They're not imposing their will on America, as those who created a right to abortion were. Those were illegitimate judges. And so you have to be prepared to defend the court when they do the right thing, which I believe they're going to do. This is the inner public courtroom of the entryway of the Supreme Court. How many have been in there, if you don't mind? About 20% of the population here. I urge you, whenever you're in D.C., go in the building and pray. You take the presence of the Holy Spirit with you if you are a Christian, and you need to be praying silently, always under authority. Don't make a scene. Don't blow shofars or throw blood on the walls. I'm not advocating anything like that. So when I started in 2000, what was in here was a tribute to the building of the Temple of Justice, meaning the building. And at the far end, by the statue of John Marshall, kind of the big supreme demigod of the Supreme Court, there was a statue of Minerva dictating the Constitution to young America. That just deeply offended me as a Christian. It was ahistorical, completely wrong. The most common document cited by all the framers was the Bible, even more than Montesquieu and life. But today, they have this new argument. We started praying in 2023 that the Supreme Court would find the right to life in the Constitution, proclaim it, and then apply it in an appropriate case or controversy. They have found it, and they're proclaiming it. This is on the walls of the Supreme Court. On the right side, left side here is the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be deprived of life without due process of law. And the 14th Amendment, nor shall any state deprive any person of life without due process of law or denied the equal protection. And if most humans are protected by law, by murder statutes, and you exclude some category of humans, that is a denial of equal protection. And some of the greatest injustices in history have occurred when we treat a class of human beings as less than human, not entitled to legal protection. But it's on the walls of the Supreme Court now. So, what did the founders mean? What did life mean? You don't have to be a lawyer. You can be a legal historian. You can talk about the Declaration of Independence, quote the founders. With consistency, beautiful and undeviating, human life from its commencement, you all know that means beginning, from its beginning, its commencements to its close, is protected by the common law. The common law was the law of all governments at that time. It was the English Anglo-Saxon tradition, which we adopted. In the contemplation of law, life begins when the infant is first able to stir in the womb. I won't go into quickening debate, but I believe that's way before quickening. The stirring in the womb, it's clearly before birth, right? There's no dispute they were protecting life before birth. And by the law, life is protected not only from immediate destruction, but from every degree of violence, and in some cases, every degree of danger. That's why we have child endangerment statutes, all right? And so another one that's very important, John Witherspoon, he said, in America, we've denied the power of life and death to parents. You think, what does that mean? Well, the pagan cultures, Roman, the Babylonians, some of the ancient law-making societies, allowed parents to either give a drug to the woman to kill the baby in the womb or to put the baby out after birth to the wolves and the weather to kill. And he said, we've taken that away. Our legal structure in America, the government we've created, the Declaration of Independence, Foundation, and the Fifth Amendment in the very first Bill of Rights that had to be passed or the Constitution wouldn't have passed. That's how foundational it was. Says you don't have the power of life and death. And what is abortion? It's the power of life and death over the child that we give to mother. It's inconsistent with the Constitution. The Constitution forbids it. And then just one more quote from the founders. Whenever such consideration, that would be for the benefit of the child, a child en ventre sommaire, that's in the mother's womb, is considered as absolutely born. Now, you can't be a citizen until you're born, because your mother may go to another country and you're born another citizen of somebody else. But you can be alive. What does the right to life mean? It's the right to live. Once you have human life, you get to continue it. And what does it take to be due process and deprive a human of life? They have to be guilty of an extremely serious crime. They have to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt by a unanimous jury of their peers. And we give them a government-appointed lawyer to protect their life. Do we do any of that for children in the womb? Absolutely not. They're not getting anything. All right, so On the table, there's a copy of this, and this is the PowerPoint I'm making today, so you have all the evidence, all right? And you can also sign the declaration and become a part of the organizing, and we'll keep you advised of what's going on. Now, here's more of God's word. I'm not going to go into any more of it, but this is important history. Whether someone believes in God or not in your audiences, you can tell them this is what the founders believed in. When they said a creator and right to life, this is where they got that information, all these scriptures. Now, the Supreme Court has already admitted that it's a human life. So if there's a right to protection of life, the court in Gonzalez v. Carhart said, some women come to regret aborting the infant life they once created and sustained. That was the first time in American history they said right to life or infant life instead of fetus. That's based on the testimony of women hurt by abortion in a brief of Sandra Cano that we filed at her. I'll just come it out. These are the prayer points. Please share these with all your prayer. People said, did I ever think Roe would be overturned? I said, yes, because it's wrong, and millions of people are praying for the end of it. We need to have prayer and legal action. These are some things that are just evidence. I will say two of these things. The legal analysis is over, but the practical workable analysis is people won't believe something if it's too hard to make them act on the belief. But abortion hurts women, so the people who think they're helping women need to know that what you're proposing, abortion, is not good for women. Number three, the safe haven law. Amy Coney Barrett mentioned it in the Dobbs case. Doesn't the safe haven law eliminate the burden of parenting? Most women don't want to kill a child, an abortion. They just think, I can't take care of a baby. I don't have the strength to deliver this child, or I don't want to. Safe haven law in every state already exists. You can give the baby the safe haven, and what will happen to the children? 1 to 2 million families every year, because of the infertility problem, are desperate to take a new children. So love the baby, love the mother, and give the babies to the children. All right, there's the legal analysis by Joshua Craddock, and Dr. Anthony is a legal historian. Craddock and Robert George, these are the most respected people who've written legal arguments that support this. And there's the QR code if you want to get a copy of my book, Reversing Roe v. Wade. I wrote it to give God the glory for what God did, and yet it's also a book of evidence that you can use on the pro-life cause. So thank you all for letting me speak today. Thank you very much.